All right, it's Tuesday, November 12th. It's 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong, and welcome to Tech Talk Live.
And it's 9 p.m. in the DMV. I'm Sam. Welcome to Tech Talk Live. We're here with a special guest, James. I'll let him
James
introduce
Prokop.
himself. Prokop.
Yeah. So
With a
we've got some interesting. So we are following developments in the AI software space with developing apps and websites. And James is a web developer. We'll let him talk about himself, but uh, quite the wild west we're into here with all these tools taking over us. So,
Yes.
James, what do you think? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on this show, both of you gentlemen. I appreciate it. Yes, AI has spun itself out of control and needs to be regulated in some way or some fashion, but I don't know who's going to regulate that exactly. Has AI helped folks build their websites, and for people that have limited tech skills? Yes. However, it leaves them kind of like waiting on the sidelines for their next steps, and they have to join ChatGPT or some other AI to figure out the next steps of building a website or a business in 2024 or 2025. The way that I have found that AI has been helpful for me is that I don't have to hire models anymore to talk well of all the services that I provide, right? So if any of you out there are listening and that you go to www.voguewebsitedesign.com, which is one of my companies, you'll see that people are raving about my industry and what I do in web development, tech, social media marketing, building businesses out, putting them on the map, giving them a digital footprint. But the AI portion of it is really helping with dressing up your advertising. So it's not just like this MailChimp e-commerce, notification that you get. You now get these amazingly excited people talking about what you do in your industry. And that is how I found AI has been helpful for the industry that I'm in. And again, if you haven't visited voguewebsitedesign.com, I encourage you to do so. Go to our About Us page, go to our services page. You'll find very straightforward pricing. You'll find animated models, actors, AI folks that are talking about what we're doing, and we're all over Instagram and Facebook. I know that's still a thing in some people's minds, but that's just an opener for what I think AI is doing for my tech company.
Very cool. Yeah, Vogue Website Design International. So it's making it easier for people to get their ideas in the web space, to have a presence. I guess it's making it easier also on the back end too. Is it making it easier on the back end?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of platforms out there that say, "Oh, no HTML coding, everything's drop and drag." A lot of people want to see that. A lot of folks want to see that because they don't know how to do HTML coding like I or my development team does. And so it invites the user into a world where they think that they won't need very much direction, but instead they're entering into a world that's going to create someone like me to guide them. And that's where I come in, and that's where I help them when they say, "Hey, I'm in this platform. I don't know next steps. Can you help me?" And I apply my ethics and my business expertise, and I do help them. But sometimes AI will get them in over their head, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know how to get out of it. So I meet with doctors, lawyers, skincare companies, realtors, a lot of different folks that need help with tech and their website and their online footprint.
So it's an interesting thing to talk about ethics in AI. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that in terms of, when is it ethical to use AI versus not? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit.
I think that's a very, very
misinformation
important question to ask anyone, because AI thus far is not regulated. It's kind of doing its own thing and helping people. In some ways, it does get shut down by law enforcement, by certain illegal things that it's doing. But again, to my point, having it regulated so that it does produce ethical decisions and regularity, I think is where we need to go to next. And not just because I got an A+ in business ethics in college, but because that if you don't regulate such a high intensity artificial intelligence, it will take over, won't it? And I leave that as an open-ended question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's an interesting concept. I mean, especially with, I guess automated, or I guess, general intelligence. That's kind of the next frontier. Is not, it's AI not specifically for any task, but more or less you can ask it any general question and have it generate. I mean, there's been some sort of talk in the industry. I mean, by 2030 seems like to be the consensus. If you ask, I know Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and several other players in the industry, have been talking about true, general intelligence implementations. And you bring up a good point. It is kind of the Wild West right now, in terms of regulation. I mean, there's no federal regulation. California's, AI regulation was, vetoed and struck down. So there really is not. It's more of a it's a self-regulating entity right now.
Right, but doesn't one have to?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and doesn't one have to apply for a license to have, say, a dog or a pet or even a child in some countries? Why not be? Why not have a certification to be part of AI before you are even allowed to structure or build anything with it? I think there should be some set of ethics put in place before people do the wrong things and others get hurt.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see also, like, I mean, there's, Squarespace is a name that comes to mind also. I mean, okay, we had WordPress. WordPress is outdated. I think new technology, I mean, AI also just kind of means the next generation, the next wave of technology. And I do think you bring a good point. Like, it makes it easier to do certain things, but also for people that are non-technical, it's not just necessarily that we're not talking to an AI robot that suddenly does everything perfectly on your website or on your app. Like, we're not to that level yet. And like, maybe we will get there, but it's like you can utilize AI if you know how, but like, should the best models, be like controlled, and how should they be controlled? And yeah, honestly, there really aren't, like, not even California is regulating this. Like, they were proposing, I don't know if you guys caught this recently. And right now, it's truly just companies. You have the right to innovate. We're not going to even put guidelines on and restrictions. Like, I guess there's a kill switch somewhere if something goes wrong. But I mean, I do kind of think it's a disaster waiting to happen, because we know that behind the scenes there's a lot more that's going on. That's not, with the O1 preview with Strawberry, right? Like, we're probably past that. GPT-5 is coming out, and honestly, that might not even be the best. There's tons of models. As we always talk about. So it truly, I don't know. Yeah. How do we stay ethical, and who should get access to, what models? And we've also covered all the Hugging Face stuff. It's crazy. All the LM Studio stuff you can run locally. You know,
No,
if you have
that's
an M4
it's
Max,
huge that you mentioned that too, because LM Studio, so not sponsored, not necessarily, you know, a shout out, but that was featured in the MacBook announcement. You can run models locally on your computer. You know, I've done that several times. I mean, you can, and kind of the forefront of AI, I feel like, is all the open source stuff that you can use and implement on your own computer, you know, more or less. So that's, you know, shout out to LM Studio. Check it out if you haven't. It's quite an incredible program, very intuitive, and you can, you know, run really any sort of model locally. And some of the open source ones, and we'll touch on this, are, you know, Trey Blows with, you know, some of the top closed source models that you may have heard of, you know, ChatGPT, you know, Sonnet from Anthropic and otherwise. So just a shout out to LM Studio for being such a solid program and just holding it down in the AI age.
Thank you,
So
Sam.
far.
And I also want to know from both of you, actually, what AI tools that you use that you find are conceptually helpful or not. And what are you using on your phones? What are you using thus far? Let's talk about that. Let's unpack this conversation a little bit
absolutely.
deeper.
Yeah, Sam, you shared with me an interesting one with the Quen 2.5 coder. I believe that the 32 billion parameter one. Yeah, that was on a Reddit thread that seemed pretty interesting. Have you been looking at that? Like, is it capable of kind of?
Yeah, we can dive into that. So Quen is a model from Alibaba. So it's it's an open source model that you can download and use today. It actually came out yesterday / 2 days ago at this point. And it's it's a model that more or less has the same capabilities as at least in initial benchmarks. I mean, it's really hard to quantify this, but it's an open source model that you can
international,
Mhm.
and it is associated with drop shipping.
No, well, oh yeah, the company behind. Yeah, that is interesting actually.
Because I have a lot of e-commerce clients that are like, James, what is the best, e-commerce platform or drop shipping? So that's why I open up this question.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, Alibaba is really kind of the big tech of China in some ways, and
as is AliExpress, right?
No, absolutely. You're 100% correct. And this is from their cloud division, so it's almost like the Amazon of China in a way. So it's like they have their arms in a lot of distinct industries, if you will. So you're absolutely right. You know, these are, the drop shipping extraordinaires that you may have purchased something off of Alibaba or AliExpress, or, this is sort of the same. They have Alibaba Cloud, which is kind of the AWS equivalent in a way. And so this is, from the same entity, more or less, an open source coding model that came out a mere days ago. So, despite the source, I mean, it is incredibly, incredibly good for what you can use on your local computer. I mean, I'm, running it on the M1. It is slow, but it works. And it's quite incredible that you can have something that's close to the state of the art, closed source. You need to pay $20 a month to use for something that, again, like, you can run on your local computer. So, I mean, open source AI, I think, in of itself is, to avoid, I mean, it's cliche, but also the future in terms of you can run it and use it on your local computer. You can see what it contains. You can tweak it if you'd like to.
And you can regulate it from making bad decisions.
I mean, yeah, I guess. No, that's true. I mean,
again, I will have to bring up my
transparent.
ethical card again because you know, I see AI as a fascinating tool that is all about the next generation, next thing. But if it gets into the wrong hands with people that have paid the Russian mafia to win an election, it could get dark real quick. So we need to have some kind of checks and balances like we do have in the United States that structures such powerful tools and instruments and industries from keeping them from creating mass chaos or long-term issues.
No, and you bring up a great, I mean, that's a great point, right? I mean, misinformation from, making it so accessible to create something, kind of once you lower the barrier to create content, you kind of remove a lot of, I mean, it's, because before it was, again, like a lot more difficult to create, misinformation, and that's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, if the barrier to misinformation is reduced, then it's a lot easier for people to exploit that. So that is something to acknowledge and think about. You're 100%.
Well, on that topic, I will not put the ethics word down just because I can see the big picture and I can see how folks can benefit from AI and how other folks can manipulate it to injure people that don't need to be injured. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So you can have these knives, these collector's knives, but they also need to be put in a museum or somewhere where they're not able to injure anyone. And that's how I kind of look at AI. And it's kind of an interesting comparison, but again, ethics is still going to remain in my mind, and that's not something that anyone has been able to answer correctly to me. So I will keep pushing that until someone is able to find a fair balance, if you will.
Well, yeah, nobody's policing this stuff, and they're giving you the tools. It's like they're giving you the car, and you can do whatever you want with the tools. And it's kind of scary when you see what cool things it can do, but also you're imagining how it could be abused. And also, I think I'm looking at the Reddit thread. It's really cool how, by the way, so going back to Quen 2.5, this model seems to do really well with putting different protocols together. And I think that it's, again, I think that's also what's missing right now. Like it seems like it's very hard to get the
reviews.
Different, no, like front ends and it has to all work together. So like, it's like if AI can do the border of that puzzle, but how does it fill in all the missing pieces? Like, I think it's about, I mean, it's more than just feeding it documentation. It's more than just telling it, prompting it, you're an expert in whatever Next.js or whatever system you need to work for whatever you're building. But I think, yeah, it's a matter of time before it can just start taking over.
Well, it's not allowed to take over yet.
Yeah.
And it won't until we have certain things in place. And yes, it can fully do functional things that are amazing and save people time. Like my executive assistant couldn't write an email to save her Now she's really good at it.
Because you've told her how to use AI properly for your needs.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Well, yes, but I mean, it does help people in ways that, we didn't think could happen. But there's also the other side of it that we just need to look at and make sure that we're protecting ourselves and our communities and our next generation and what they're going to do with things, and not just handing over reins of terror and disbelief and being unaware of, but handing over controls to another generation that knows the strength and the power of what we're giving them, right? So why not have it checked and balanced, just like this country is? It's not England. We can't just whatever, but there should be something that regulates AI. Is my point, and that's all I need to really send home. But I applaud the people that are using it to benefit and what they're accomplishing and their accomplishments with that. I think that's incredible. But I just really want to see what's the next steps, and why don't we talk about that? Why don't we unpack all these things about AI? I don't think we say enough about it.
Well, so when we don't have to write our own emails, when we don't have to learn our own coding, when we don't have to learn all this stuff because we've got these powerful AI tools, what is this going to do to our brains? Like, if you truly don't have to learn, think, read, write, because you can just whip up these tools and basically tell it to do what you want whenever you want. Because you can be more productive with AI. You can build websites faster. You can write emails faster. You can.
I mean, I see that, but I also see that we lost probably about 3 or 4 years when we had the pandemic and nobody was being educated and everyone's IQ was dropping faster than.
So AI is here to save us.
So no, AI is to put you back in what you missed a little bit. You sloppy, uneducated person, right? So AI is going to give you some advantage, but in the same sense, we need to make sure that it doesn't get to the wrong hands. Is all my point. So it's good. It will catch the folks that missed out on going to all of these college courses, but it will also be very powerful. And again, I hope someone chimes in and says something human that will, nourish my point.
Yeah, we can't forget what make us humans and what make people unique. We are all unique people, and I know it sounds silly to say that, but yeah, AI doesn't have that kind of personality. And I think as this technology becomes more mainstream, looking at even Apple with the Siri and the basically transitioning to Apple Intelligence, it's interesting seeing how this evolution is becoming more productive.
And you see the hangups that they still are working on.
They're working on a lot of things, but that's also general. I feel like if you know a little bit more, like again, the LM Studio type of stuff, and even the online models that can code and fix issues, I think it's very valuable for not only designing websites, but writing and oh my gosh, so much. We've talked about Sora.
There's right, but then we have to regulate, who's creating plagiarism, Mrs. Trump, who are doing all these certain things that are manipulating or copying someone else's work. That needs to be checked because that is called AI plagiarism, right?
So what is AI? What does AI plagiarism mean? It just means
anything that has been reproduced by what someone else has said. A good example of that would be Michelle Obama's speech that she gave. That I don't know how to say the other woman's name, but she pretty much reproduced the same speech and called it her own. And I think people in this country or around the world go to jail for plagiarism, don't they? Or perjury. I mean, if they're not.
Well, I guess if you're in college, it's probably the most you'll ever get punished for plagiarism, which is kind of ironic.
Well, even if you're not, though, even if you're
Yeah.
in a really well-paid 6-figure job, and they were like, "How did you come up with this marketing report? How did I do it? Oh, AI."
Well, no, that's interesting, and I guess you bring up like copyright law, right? In the sense of AI generated content. You know, like can something that's AI generated be copyrighted in a sense? And I guess at least for now, the courts have said no. But I understand what you're saying because in a way, it was trained off of copyrighted material, but it's not necessarily copyrighted material itself. So it's kind of it's a collection of copyrighted material, but that reproduction itself isn't necessarily copyrighted. So I understand like it really could go both ways in that sort of manner. But it's I guess something where the regulation is kind of not necessarily up to date with the it's not following the technology more or less.
Fact checking, is that what you're asking?
Or I guess just in general, just any AI generated content is not necessarily like it could be copyrighted material. I mean, really anything. I guess it sounds like if I'm interpreting it correctly, it's like something that's AI generated could be copyright related some way.
I think Harvard is already looking at that, and Princeton and all of the Ivy League schools that expect original essays from their students. I mean, they already have a system that they're bouncing off plagiarism and AI, and that's something that would be another topic for another time. But I'm just saying, like, AI is so powerful, and yes, it's brilliant, it's amazing, it does amazing commercials for my business, but I just want to make sure that as humans as we all are, that it's not overshadowing or taking over on the original work that we provide.
Well, we control how much we let, I think the power that we let it take from us. I mean, for example, I view this new platform, Super Music, which if you haven't heard of it, it's a pretty cool app. You can give it a prompt and it will, I mean, again, and as detailed as you can be, and it will write you a song with the lyrics, or you can write the lyrics and it will write the instrumentals and all that. And I'm not going to lie, it's pretty good. The songs sound really good.
With like the AI that people create to create songs, is that their own inner creativity, or is that something produced or manufactured by a computer?
It's weird. It's like, okay, the sewing machine's there, the coffee machine's there, the AI machine is there as well.
And they all know what rhymes, and you didn't?
No, but it's like, it's a tool, and yes, it's, I mean, I guess let's throw it back to the prompting. Is the prompting the art, or is the result the art? Because, I mean, I think it's like you're still creating, and not necessarily this is a debate. I mean, yes, sure, they're not learning all the instruments and writing everything original. That's fine. You're letting the system do it, and then you're, claiming it as your own because you like the result that you got. I mean, I think you still are the creator behind it that's kind of curating the experience in a way, I guess, because you're prompting it to get the result.
And you prompted it to do artificial things that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself.
It is AI work for sure, but it's like, I mean, I guess, how do you...
So that's why they have these social media platforms that are like, hey, is this an AI generated image? Yes or no? You have to answer this. Like they're already starting to regulate certain things on apps and whatever.
But that's just
But
to
I
tell
don't
the
even know
user.
if that's the right way to even like,
Yeah.
if we want to regulate it like that, or how it should look. I just think that people need to be protected. Their work, their original work needs to be protected, and that's my angle. I don't want to shut down a beautiful thing. I just want to make sure that we maintain equality for the legal equality for folks that have fought so hard to be so creative and original.
Well, I mean, if it can help the musician, and okay, if you're already a musician and now it helps you make your beat faster, I mean, you're still a musician, right? I mean, I guess it's like, okay, well, then the non-musician in the room with the app that then writes lyrics to a song and then gets the app to kind of produce the song. I mean, yeah, the song was not composed by, I mean, it's just, I guess it depends on the viewpoint in a way.
Well, there's a couple of mine.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I think it goes back to like, where do you draw the line between AI as a
And
writing
where does it
aid?
advance to be okay, right?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying do away with it. Absolutely not, because it saves me time and ignorance from my what's her name?
Your
And
assistant.
right. And so sometimes it saves me a lot of time. But I don't want it to overlap where others feel like I am not being original or not being the true author or artist behind all of this. So when I am a web developer, as I am, and when I develop and design different aesthetics for different genres of work, if they might be a doctor, a lawyer, skincare company, I always make sure that everything is original and it's on point to their brand. And I think that with AI, they don't ask what are your 3 branding colors, right? What does your logo look like? Humans ask those things. So I think AI is catching up, but before it like replaces anybody, let's make sure that it's regulated for originality. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sam, are you there?
That's a hard one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I guess, and I mean, you bring up a good point, and I mean, Jack and I have talked about this before, in terms of like what amount of AI generated content is acceptable. I mean, especially because we create a podcast, so technically, like Google has some software that generates a podcast from any PDF you can upload. So it's like, at what point is it sort of like, well, we could just
clone our voices
yeah,
and then have it do it.
yeah.
I mean, you literally could
So
do
it's like,
that.
why do we do this? So it's like,
You guys are
I
real right
mean,
now, right?
we
Like,
could,
Yeah.
I'm a real
right?
guest.
Yes, you're a
Where
real
is-
guest.
okay.
You have a
Well,
personality.
no, I think we're all real here, hopefully, right?
What do some of your
But
international friends say, Sam and Jack? What do they say about AI exactly? I'm interested to hear an international perspective.
Well, I do think the U.S. is the leader in a sense, because not only regulations are kind of lax here right now. I think Europe wants to. I mean, Europe's always kind of cracking down early, and I mean curbing a little bit of the companies. I mean, if I don't think I do think that here is a good, like, OpenAI probably could not exist in another country, but I mean, in terms of what, like utilizing design
No, I'm
tools.
just interested in hearing other international perspectives,
That's
because
good.
I run an international company and I am interested in hearing what others have to say about this topic specifically.
I mean, at least from my European
Yeah, go
friends, I know that at least the EU itself. I mean, them personally, they love, the fact that, AI is more or less unchained in America, more or less, but that the EU takes a more cautious approach generally to tech regulation. I mean, we've seen that with the privacy, regulations that have passed, and whatnot. I mean, at least
Right, but the EU is also wearing clothes that we wore in the 1980s. So I think they're still
sure,
kind of like
yeah.
looking at us as the leaders of this harbored piece of technology. So,
you're right.
do
Yeah, I
we
mean, it's we are the innovative sender of.
do we screw it up, or
at
do we
least
give
for
a good
now.
example?
Well, there's a lot of there's a culture of innovation in the United States, and I think that with AI, I mean, also capital here. I mean, companies are confident in their abilities to, to invest in the future of this technology, and even NVIDIA. I mean, of course, powering a lot of it. Amazon, Microsoft's investments into things, and we're kind of in this race. I mean, all these companies racing together, and it probably couldn't happen anywhere else. And of course, China's impressive with certain models and certain companies doing things, and they're definitely getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. I mean, and we need competition, and I mean, yeah, from other countries. So
yeah, but I'd like to see like companies that form together for the greater good, and then their stocks go up because they've created the next cure for cancer with AI, or they've created whatever that will help someone or help people or help businesses, and not necessarily have to be monetized or people capitalize on it, but it just helps people. I think that message for AI would be a good first model, if you would, on why we want AI in our daily lives, why we want it with our businesses, and how it can be structured in a way that is not negatively impacting the world.
Well, that's the golden question. I mean, it's like, because, I mean, you mentioned the negative impact. It's really hard to quantify a lot of that, because in some ways we don't necessarily even know the impact yet, at least with.
Until it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're barely, figuring out the impact of social media. This is a novel technology in the early 2010s. This sort of became mainstream, more or less, in the mid, over the last decade, and now, we're only recently kind of discovering it's like, oh shoot, like this is perhaps, I mean, a little bit more, nefarious than we thought, right? It's not.
Yeah, we
It's
could have
not
saved a
exactly
lot more lives. A lot more lives if we had regulated it or handled it well. But information quick was what everybody wanted, and then they got their information very quickly, and there's some teenagers that didn't make it through certain situations. I'm just saying, let's be responsible about it. And
that's absolutely fair.
that's in a business perspective. I'm not saying, let's rag on AI. No, I'm saying AI is amazing, but let's make it be strong and powerful in the right way, so it doesn't negatively impact people's lives. That's all I'm saying. And I can say that because I work in tech. I deal with conversations, CEOs all the time that want to know how they can help their businesses strive and be stronger. And it is my job to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. And if I can introduce them to AI with tools that are innovative and successful, then you're absolutely right. I'm going to sign them up for that. But if there's questions in my mind that indicate that this could go in a totally different direction, I'm not going to be responsible for that. Why? Because I'm a successful tech e-commerce business owner. And I think about things like that. And I hope other business owners think about things like that.
Yeah. Well, I think tastefully using AI, we could say. And also, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, do the viewers deserve a disclosure that this is an AI, image or whatever?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, does she? Never mind. We're
Well-
not allowed to talk like that.
Well, you know what? There's contentcredentials.org. I think we've talked about this before. You can inspect certain images, and yeah, they're trying to crack down on at least offering a way to be more transparent with deepfakes, voice cloning, synthetic media, AI images, because some people, yeah, it is really hard now to know what's art and what is an AI image and what is a real image. I mean, some of these models are getting really good. Same with the writing models, same with the coding models, same with the voice models. I mean, it's all getting really good and more highly detailed and just more realistic. And so, but will these types of tools catch on? Will things like content credentials? I mean, I don't have any affiliation with this. I've actually seen at an event last year, an AI summit I attended. They did bring this up because Adobe works with them. So if you use any of the AI
Adobe
editing, in Firefly. So if you use any of the tools like with them and photoshopping, you can now see, great, this image was extended or this image was whatever. I mean, but also people do have to adopt this protocol. They do have to say, hey, this is a thing that we want to use to show that, hey, actually we're being transparent that this is part of this content was generated with AI.
Then in a simple tense, then just have them agree to the terms of service and at least announce it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying shut it down.
Oh, and then I'm going to use my AI tool to read the terms of service and summarize it for me.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
but I mean, like,
and then you'll be educated like me.
And then we'll feed it into what is it? Google LM?
Translate.
No, the podcast tool, and then you feed it content, and then it'll speak for us now.
Right, and then you won't need to pay an assistant anymore.
I mean, AI pretty much could probably replace most assistants. I mean, if you know what you're doing with AI.
Right, exactly.
And I mean, yes, AI is not free. I mean, some of the models are. Some of the open source ones are pretty cool. But, a good bit of the software is paid. So,
yeah. So if it's going to be paid for, it needs to then just be monetized and checked. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Because it's great for 2025. Sam, what do you think?
I mean, next year it's impossible to say, given that, I mean, I remember in late 2022, when ChatGPT came out, and I mean, that was it was 2 years ago, right? So in an additional year, who's to say, like, I mean, it's hard to predict. But if it keeps advancing at the pace that we've seen, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, there are entry-level positions replaced with it. I mean,
absolutely. Why should we have somebody who is efficient at this or that? But should we also check where they went to college? I don't know.
Well, you can also train an AI theoretically better than a human assistant. I mean, be faster. I mean, yes, it takes time to build it, but I mean, this is the worry. Like, people will really get.
Okay, so I've made a valid point, and I just want to hear the opposite from both of you.
Okay.
Well, I guess that it won't be sufficient enough to replace a human employee, more or less.
It depends, right? I think you could. I personally would love to train an AI that could answer my voicemail for me as my assistant.
I've been able to do that.
No, yeah, but you can tell your voicemail people, hey, I'm not able to read, but hey, I'm an AI assistant here ready to chat with you.
Which is probably better than
what can I get you? What can I? And again, the goal here is efficiency. That person that's trying to reach me and I'm busy doesn't have access to me.
Are you talking about bots or are you talking about AI?
No, I'm talking about an AI voice assistant that theoretically is basically your voicemail that can't interact. And I get it. We already have call screening software and tools, state the reason, and then transcribing the voicemails. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, right now you record a voicemail, someone leaves a voicemail, right? What if it was, hey, Jack can't come to the phone right now, but hey, I am Emily, and I'm here to help you, and and or whatever. And then the goal is it's more efficient. Maybe it puts a calendar thing on your calendar, or maybe it sets a reminder for you automatically. I don't know. Do we want that? I mean, I don't have an assistant right now, but like, hey, theoretically, in the future, I would probably just use that instead of training somebody. Hey, this is how you answer my calls.
What is your thoughts on that, Sam?
I mean, I mean, at least from an entry-level perspective, right? I don't think we're too far away from. I mean, I think the biggest component that's kind of missing is sort of the UI, sort of the human-computer interaction between. I think the technical capability is there, right? We have agents that, like if you provided, if maybe the text transcription to an AI assistant, it would be able to more or less maybe 80% of the time accurately determine, like, hey, I'll set up a meeting with you. I'll check, Jack's calendar. I'll set up a time, So I think from a technical standpoint, we're pretty dang close. From the human interaction standpoint, it's sort of, we need to figure out how to sort of take the the spoken speech, because most of AI right now is, it's you type a prompt into an agent and it provides you an answer. Most people don't,
answer.
They don't operate like that.
Different, right? Because Google will give you a dressed up answer based on what it's trying to sell you that day.
Well,
but
exactly.
AI is more
the Google search
straightforward
is
and a lot more diligent about getting you to point B to point A to point B. So I appreciate that about AI, is that I can kind of lose the marketing tied to my Google search when I use AI.
That is good. Well, if it's accurate and doesn't hallucinate.
Well, most of the time it is.
Well,
because
yeah, I guess so. So you think it's
Sam,
accurate?
are you struggling with something right now? I can hear it.
Sorry, come again?
No, I mean, it sounds like you have mixed thoughts about this AI conversation, and I don't want it to be the heavy, right? But
No,
I do want
that's fair.
to make
Yeah,
things are regulated for people's safety. That's all I'm saying.
No,
and so that people aren't
agree.
doing illegal things. That's all I'm saying. But
no,
that's me.
I'm usually the skeptic, and Jack can tell you that when it comes to new technology. I'm usually quite skeptical, and honestly, I mean, half the time, at least with AI, I follow a few. A few people or a few, quote unquote experts who specialize in jailbreaking, quote unquote, AI models to do exactly what, we're talking about, is sort of provide, it's like, hey, like, write some malware for me. Usually most of the time it's sort of like, oh, I can't do that. That's bad. So it's like, okay, well, let me manipulate the prompt such that we bypass your handlers, because the AI knows how to do that. It's just a matter of convincing it or bypassing the sort of safeguards that are provided. And that's kind of the narrow line of,
why we're not further along in this.
Well, I have another way to say this. How many steps away are we from that prompt? So look, if you say write malware for me, I can't do that. Sorry, that's bad. Well, what about if you phrase your prompt in 20 different prompts that teach you the fundamentals to do such a thing?
Then you would be working with a very more
but
expensive AI piece of equipment.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like that you could probably in different prompts, maybe more than 20. I mean, who knows, right? But it makes you wonder how many prompts away you are from divulging some really, really, really quote unquote bad robot sort of AI intelligence that's taking over, right? Because everyone has good and bad thoughts, right? Including AI. It's just training the AI that these are not appropriate to spout out, even if you know how to do it.
Well, I have like 2 questions right now. And one of them is, what are the most popular AI tools that are being used right now? Let's answer that. Gentlemen, can you tell me, or just...
Absolutely. I mean, right, ChatGPT. I mean, it's kind of the Google of the AI space, right? I mean, OpenAI, they had the first, it's kind of the first to market, first the best. They were the first. I mean, that made the biggest splash. That was sort of like, and they still have a moderate competitive advantage, maybe, but the first mover advantage is large enough to sort of make them. They're still, OpenAI is still absolutely relevant and absolutely a huge player. But it comes down to, I mean, they were also the first to the market. So, yeah, absolutely. I would say they have an advantage with, I mean, a vast majority of chatbot traffic, I think, is still through OpenAI. I don't know the exact proportion, especially these days, but I think they have a pretty decent advantage, at least from a consumer usage standpoint.
Well, I'm a fan of Kagi because I just think it's an ad-free search, and I like that all the models are in one place. I'm talking about, the big models. I get it. There's a lot more that aren't included, but I think Anthropic's has pretty good ones. And I like the Gemini 1.5. I do think it's better, the experience on the Pixel or on the phone. If you have I have a free trial for a year or whatever, because they gave me the phone, but I feel like I kind of like the aggregating tools personally that kind of give you like access to all of them versus paying $20 for each of them. You're basically paying for one. So it's kind of like, I don't know what to say, the cable TV instead of paying for everything a la carte, I guess, kind of in a way. But I find it very useful. So
how do they benefit your businesses, gentlemen?
Well, for sure. I think it's a way to organize stuff. Like I like organizing. I do think there's also, I use something called My Memo, Build a Brain, Second Brain with AI. So it's basically a way to save your documents and get summaries and audio reminders.
Yeah, and Zoom does that too, and we cache your conversation.
Yeah, but I think even for this podcast, I think our audience, some of people that follow this and listen to every minute, probably know we take the transcript and we summarize it with AI. So a lot of the summaries that people are seeing on the description that's on the podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of that, it's been generated with AI. So AI is a tool to kind of summarize this whole conversation. And
Sam, is that your answer to this question too?
That's instead of doing
I'll do an alternative. I mean, I read a lot of documentation. So for stuff that's not sensitive, I mean, I love Notebook LM. I mean, this is Google's. I mean, it's maybe about a month old at this point, but you can upload any amount of PDF documents. I mean, I get stuff that's like, reports that are 100 pages long, and it's like, look, a lot of this, written by humans is quite literally it's not important. So if I get the cliff notes or the most important points and sort of chat with the document, that's immensely helpful. It does save a lot of time. So yeah, I mean, at least for me, I mean, I'm in PDF land over here in terms of documentation. So I think it really does, AI in terms of cutting down on, I mean, humans create a lot of content. A lot of it isn't necessarily, relevant and or important. And I think AI can provide a lot of, it's like, I'm not reading all this stuff that you sent me. Let me just get the cliff notes of it, and I can sort of click through the citation and make that.
Or make a video of it so that you don't have to read anything.
Yeah,
or
you like
that,
the video.
I can make a podcast. Yeah.
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So here we are,
Well, it's interesting to hear your perspective, Sam. And again, my question remains on how you apply your AI to your the work that you do.
Well, I mean, I guess at least for my, I mean, I do a lot of volunteering. I mean, at least, and even in like, my career, it's, I get a lot of documentation, and it's like, it is, in terms of, it does help me accomplish. I mean, the thing is, like, I need insights from a 100-page document, and it's like, that helps me achieve that without necessarily, spending a ton, because people add a lot of unnecessary stuff to, to a document. I mean, it's just sort of like, that's, from a human standpoint, whatever your business, I mean, somebody could send over any number of proposals, but, they're more or less, filled with information that's not relevant. So that's something that I feel like, at least even from a work perspective, is very helpful. Is like, just cutting that down, giving me a synopsis, and then I can dig in depending on where that falls.
That sounds very trusting too.
And here's a bigger conversation, gentlemen, is how can AI help market each of our businesses on this podcast? Let's talk good things about AI for a moment, shall we?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, at least for this podcast, I mean, I guess summarizing. I mean, I've used it to, summarize, the Apple M4, changes, right? So a big news story comes out, everybody's talking about it. Tell me what, give me the bullet points, and then from there, it's like, oh, like, I can search for this specific one and elaborate a little bit more. Versus like searching on Google, reading, synthesizing, summarizing. It allows you to consume a large amount of information and kind of at least, calculate the direction of where you're going a little bit easier, at least for me. Especially when,
well, I mean, Sam, I'm saying I'm a full believer of AI. I just don't want the same thing that happened with social media, where we got all this fake news and fake information, being interpreted through AI. Shouldn't not one person be able to trust the fact that AI is somehow regulated so that we get the information that is correct instead of enhanced by the people that are creating it?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, and that's kind of why, I mean, I take it a step further, and I like to read. I dig deeper. I don't take what is presented as face value. Like, I'll search specifically for any point that's brought up, because I want to read the context to it, and I feel like, given AI can't hallucinate, that it's a good mitigation to just double check it as a human, and that's sort of the skill that a human possesses, is like, you have a relatively stable sense of reality. You don't just make things up, generally, right? I'm not a psychopath. You know, so it's like I can read something and internalize it. So it's like I feel like that's kind of the next step in terms of making it more of a hybrid approach, as opposed to, you know, summarize the AI, you know, or AI summarize this, and, you know, I'm going to take that as canon versus, okay, like let me look more into this point. But it sort of gives you like a framework to search off of, at least for me. I don't know. I mean, how do you use it, Jack? I mean, is it similar? Is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I think for editing things, I feel like it can help. I mean, I see where you're coming from with summarizing or rephrasing. I feel like I get a good outline, and then or vice versa, maybe I'd like help expanding a topic and giving me, bullet points, or, helping me create, a little bit more information. It's just, again, expanding knowledge that I might not have thought about by myself. I feel like the image models are also really cool. It can help you bring an idea to life, a quick concept versus sketching something, where truly when you're prompting every element of that image, yeah, I mean, in a way you are creating it, even though you're not there drawing it yourself. You probably told it what style you want, what colors you want, what to do, what not to do. And so I think like it can make an idea that you have happen, and I like visualizing things with it. And also, whether it's, paring down a transcript, or also editing the podcast audio. I mean, it can do a lot of things
That's
automated.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's taking a task before, yeah, you'd have to sit and go through everything and say, oh, that was peaking. Oh, darn. Oh, wow, we had a 10-second pause here, and I said, the word that begins with a um, and it'll automatically take that out. So I mean, it probably would edit this out itself. So anyway, I think it just, again, makes your workflow more efficient. And so whether it's taking out,
but we're already programmed in Los Angeles to talk like that and behave like that,
but
and drive like that.
It cuts out the filler words that are nonsense. And so anyway, whether it's that,
so
or
for
enhancing,
folks in Wisconsin that hesitate a lot, maybe, I don't know. I'm just saying that in Los Angeles, we are expected to clearly speak and articulate everything and be on all the time.
Yeah. It's very powerful, can do a lot. So, yeah, there's going to be more and more uses coming out. And I think even, with going back to tie all of this together, I think there's still a lot that you have to do manually. And it'll be interesting when AI kind of has more of its own free spirit to whether that's to put an integration together, or and I build really custom tools where you take one thing that's on a completely different system and it automatically converts it to the right format for the other thing that you need. And so I think that would be, for me, the most useful thing in terms of building websites, and from my experience.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you. It can be very time time efficient, and I appreciate that. However, there's certain things that AI. I mean, I would rather just write the email myself than say, please structure this in a way that is my aesthetic, or I just know what I'm going to articulate on, versus some Gen X's that just haven't learned certain words yet, so they rely on AI to make them look better.
Yeah, no, this is a very fascinating conversation. I think everyone, would agree.
Well, I think everybody should have an opinion or say something or contribute to the conversation of AI, right?
Yeah, we do need to regulate this.
So, no, I mean, just to have an opinion so that we can hear from other folks and build on ideas and see what works and what doesn't. That's what a collaboration is.
No, and we will have to. We'll definitely come back to this. We are 16 minutes over, so we will have to wrap it up. Next week, if you're free, absolutely meet up. We can have you come on again.
Another guest speaker. I need green M&Ms in my dressing room, though, and a massage
No, that's
therapist.
fair.
And a massage therapist.
Do green M&M. That's okay.
We'll make sure.
I'm happy to come on and
I know
talk
a
with
guy.
you guys because you're very intelligent, bright, insightful, and you know, even if there's things that I say that you have a different opinion on, please challenge me. Please educate me so that I can see things from another lens.
This debate will continue. This conversation will continue. And
AI
we're always
is
here
not
with the
going
tech
away.
news. It's not going away.
It's
It's the new wave of the technology that awaits us. So fascinating conversation as always. And
Thank
we're
you,
back.
gentlemen, for having me on the show.
You're
I really
most
appreciate
welcome,
it.
James.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back.
Absolutely.
And we're here every Tuesday at 6-9 p.m. On every Tuesday talking tech. So chat in. Our website's techtalklive.xyz. We're here, same time, same place.
And Sam's website is.
That's our website. That's show's website.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to wrap it up?
No, I mean, check us out next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm Sam, and we'll talk more tech very soon. AI is not going away. We'll be back. It's
a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a good hour with you guys. Thank you.
Likewise.